Welcome to Sony Simplified. I'm Matt with Sony Electronics, and the word on the digital street is that we'll be spending some time together today on how best to stream music through your Sony BRAVIA Theater. You notice I didn't say bar? We got you. We're here for the whole shebang-a-rang. Now, before we start beating up the beat, don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, hop, skip, and most importantly, chat, because we are doing it live, y'all. I would like to be checking the chat from time to time just to make sure that I keep up with y'all, but I want to make sure that we bring that up on the screen. That way we have it right in front of me. So give me 1 second while we had a couple technical difficulties earlier. So let me just make sure I catch up with you while we check that live. So just 1 second on the side here and I'll be catching up to you. But while I make sure that loads, and I can already tell that you guys are interested in what we're going to talk about today, we're actually offering 1,000 piggyback imaginary points for commenting in the chat. So if you're ready to turn your living room to the dance floor and make those imaginary useless points rain, I'm ready for you too. So however many we get, and I'll catch up to you once I have this thing loaded up, we'll get started here and then I'll catch up to y'all as well. So we're diving in here, right? Scenario, you want to pump up the jams, you're staring at that Sony soundbar, or maybe you haven't picked it up yet, and this is video number 42 of your YouTube doom scroll. We've all been there. If so, let's at least imagine that beautiful BRAVIA Theater Bar 8 mounted just below the TV. You with me? All right, good. So, got the soundbar, check. We've got the phone or tablet or voice assistant, check, check. Got Spotify, don't judge me. I know that some of y'all love Pandora. My wife's the same way. But for us today, just to keep it simple, we'll only be doing the one demonstration just to give you a general example of how this effectively works. So we want to make sure we see that process, but my personal favorite is Spotify. So let's just say today's video is going to be a little bit biased. I'm sure you'll forgive me later. Now, is the dance floor cleared? Check. Time to walk you through setup and features that I know they're going to turn your living room to something the neighbors are only going to be jelly of. So today, and I almost have that chat ready, don't you worry. Finally, we had so many technical difficulties. Technology. It's like I work for a technology company, am I right? So today's topics. Today we're going to be connecting to your sound system. So sort of important, you would agree, I assume. Next, streaming from your phone or tablet. I assume it's still glued to your hand. No offense, but I'm going to assume that because it's glued to mine, right? No judgment right there. Hey, there we go. Now I'm back. Now I got those live chats. I got it. So next, using voice assistant. Depending on how we programmed it, it's not just, hey, I'm not going to say because it's going to activate my own, but maybe you reprogram it to respond to, probably not. I don't think that's even allowed, but if you could, I know you would, right? I know I would. But don't say it yet because it's always listening. And lastly, and this is very important, the super secret bonus topic. Maybe more important, maybe less important than I'm making it out to be, but wouldn't you like to know what that's about? Looking over in the chat to just make sure who's checking out the stream today. And if you're not here yet, if you're not here, where could you be today? I mean, come on, what's more important? So let's dive into the meat and potatoes, right? So most Sony soundbars, for example, the BRAVIA Theater 8, which is the Bar 8 we're going to be talking about today, or if you have a slightly older model like the A5000, I myself, big fan, and I have one, which is a lucky thing, right? They support things like Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, Spotify Connect, and Apple AirPlay 2. And while I might not be using Apple AirPlay 2 today, because I don't happen to have an Apple phone, I'm not trying to judge, but just because I don't have it doesn't mean I don't respect it. So all those connection mediums are things that we support, especially on the BRAVIA Theater Bar 8, which is what we'll mostly be focused on today. But AirPlay 2, if you're an Apple user, you can stream from any iOS app directly, which is ideal. Bluetooth, I'm pretty sure we're all generally familiar with by now. It's that quick tap to pair. And for the bar, I know that these don't have a screen on the front if you do have the Bar 8. So let's make sure that we look for that light. That light is actually going to tell you if the bar is in what input, right? So if you see a white light, that just tells me I'm on an input. And if I'm on a blue light, a solid dark blue light, that's going to tell me that I'm actually on Bluetooth. So that's very helpful as well. Light blue, we'll get into later. Secret color, let's get in there. So depending on your system layout, your system might have peripherals, sub, rear speakers, etc. So it's not just, as always, if you've ever seen the other video I've done before, it's not just, did I set it up by plugging it in? It's got power, I'm done, right? want to make sure we've actually mapped out that space. So if we map out that space, we want to make sure that we're using that software in the BRAVIA Connect app. If you already guessed it before I said it, you're ahead of the curve. Nicely done. So when we use that BRAVIA Connect app, and we're actually going to be showcasing that today, we want to make sure we got the best out of our system. And as you can see on your screen, mapping that room is so essential. So if this is the first time you either are buying a bar, so you don't have it yet, or you just purchased it yet and you sprinted for me, thank you. I knew I'd see you here. But if you just are the first time opening up that app, period, this is super important that you get it right. Not because it'll ruin everything if you don't, but because you'll thank yourself and me. You can, I'll be waiting for the chat in several months or a week, but you'll thank yourself later if you take your time on this setup, because there's a lot of goodies in that app, but that mapping alone, night and day difference between just plugging and playing and getting the full power and actual accuracy and placement out of that sound system. So from the very beginning, or if you added something later, some of us buy the bar and then we add sub or we add rears later, depends on the bundles we have available, or just depends on what we've got from that paycheck. Whichever we decide to do and whatever we order in order we do, I want to make sure you optimize again, map that room again if you add anything extra, or we just paint our family room, not this wall, over there, but we just paint our family room, so I had to move everything out of the way, and when I put it back, I'm going to map it again, because hey, things change, and I want to make sure it's always just as good as I can get. And thankfully, it's super easy to do in the app, which is ideal, because who wants to try that hard? But I'm trying to just enjoy the way it sounds. I already paid for it. Give me the quality, right? And I know you all agree. I'm just going to wait for you to agree, and I'm going to assume you do, even if you don't say it. So before we dive into the actual content, bear in mind, I've already done the setup. I've already done the mapping. I've actually already set up my Wi-Fi. So I want the soundbar to update itself, right? So I need to be on the same Wi-Fi, and that's going to pay dividends later for if I connect my phone to the device, which is going to be super helpful. And then Bluetooth, I've already set up as well, because hey, sometimes I just want to connect real quick, or if I have a friend over and I don't feel like being the DJ today, or they might be better at it, could be, I don't know. I know a lot of music. I don't know. We'll see how much you judge my music choices later. But today, we want to make sure that all those are already done, and we'll dive in later a little bit further on why those are important. But there's also a how-to blurb at the top when you go into the settings, which I'll show you where it should be. I've already clicked it because I shouldn't have, but I couldn't help it. It was just a little lightning bulb, and I was like, that looks fascinating. What is this? But it'll walk you through how to do this connection or streaming audio device, because that's mostly what we're doing, right? We're either watching a movie or watching the 50th episode of an anime that never ends, right? I know which ones it might be. Some of you can guess, but it's either that or we're listening to music. I need it to be fast. I don't want to think about it. I just want to press a button and then get back to what I was doing. I can see, oh, Rowan and Excel, I remember you. Welcome back. So once that's all done, now we're going to dive into my own example so I can walk you through a little bit of how exactly this works. So hopefully today's technical difficulties haven't spread. Hey, look at that. It's working already. I knew that was in the past. We're already moving forward. So this is the home screen of the BRAVIA Connect app. Very simple. This is going to be your one-stop shop, and no more of, and this is, by the way, the actual remote that shows up with the Theater Bar 8. This is a nice little remote, you know, simple, pretty sleek, right? A couple buttons on there I might like, and we can go into later in the chat if you have a question on it or what have you. But this is your digital remote. And like I mentioned earlier, it's more likely to be in your hand or nearby, or you're aware of where it is, than the remote. I don't know about y'all, but there's sometimes remotes disappear in this house. So it can't be me. It's probably the cat. So the phone can ring, which is helpful. And not every remote has a remote finder. Dang it, Sony, something else to add. But regardless, this is probably going to be the thing in your pocket and not this. So if you walk around life with this in your pocket, I mean, I'm not judging you, I'm just a little confused. But as you can see, it's a very simple interface. But we want to go into settings. That's the way we're going to start affecting things we're talking about today, at least. And Matt doesn't talk too long, right? So the first thing I'm going to show you is where that blurb would have been, the how-to blurb, right? That would have been above the wireless speaker settings, all the way at the top. It's a nifty little lightning bulb, and it says, would you like to know how to do this? I clicked yes immediately, couldn't help it. If you go down 4 or 5, depending on how you think of things, to Bluetooth settings, If I don't want to just find it on my Bluetooth, go through an endless list of devices that I might have in the area, this is where you do it. It automatically walks you straight to it. And you'll see at the top, there's actually a Bluetooth connection quality option. That is for if you are walking a little bit further away from the device. So let's say I'm playing music in my family room and my kitchen is adjacent. It's right next to it. Well, so there might be devices in between us. I might walk a little further. My house ain't that big, but if I did, if it's your house, which invite me over, I'm just saying if I go further and there's stuff in the way, right? We all understand how this works, I'm hoping. But when devices are in the way, metal especially is in the way, the signal gets degraded. So we want to make sure we focus on distance. And that would be your second option, called focus on priority on stable connection. Sound quality is what we wish for, but stay connected is what we hope for. So choose wisely, and you better not be chatting with me later asking me why I walked 2 miles away from my soundbar and it's not connected. I think we both know the answer. And if you don't know the answer, we'll talk privately. So that's Bluetooth. But if we step outside of that and we go back for the real quality, we want to use Spotify Connect in the Spotify example. So I go down to the bottom, almost the bottom, how to use network audio function. Click it. And right there, you'll see two options. The top one is for lossless audio. So lossless audio is something that it's like the first time you heard a record or a CD, or if you're used to those and then you switch to an MP3. If you've ever done that, or if you've never done that, try it. Because that kind of thing tells you a lot about the amount of information that's available and what things really sound like. And lossless audio is as close as you can get to the real life performance or real life recording, the real recording, the best quality files. Different angle, different video. I'm sure it already exists, so check it out on our YouTube. If not, get on that Sony, right? It's already there. But what we are going to focus on is Spotify Connect. So if we click that right now, look at that. Nice partnership. A little icon should pop up for you in a second because there's a slight delay when it comes to how these two things sync up. And since there it is, open Spotify app. Luckily for us, I already have it opened up. Don't you dare judge my music choices today. You see that little pop up? That is actually going to show me what I'm most likely going to use next, which is the most common stuff, right? In my home, there are really two devices I use the most when it comes to streaming music, streaming audio. And that's going to be the family room where we watch something together, or the music comes from there as well. And there might be something else, but that's about it. So as you can see here, it's labeled Family Room Bar 8. We'll go over that maybe later on how to do that. But I know exactly what that is, and thus I know exactly where that is, just because I labeled it that way. Welcome, Ranieri. Welcome, Kevin Boyden. How y'all doing? I just noticed that. I think it popped up earlier, so my apologies for being a little slow. So I'm going to connect real quick to the Family Bar 8, basically. As you can see, and I'll show you a little bit easier, on the bottom left, that's actually already connected. And I can switch to a different device, and if we dive into Google or if you look up YouTube videos on it, you can see how there are other ways to do that. But here you can see I'm already connected, and I can just hit play from here. Now, if I'm using Spotify Connect, you guessed it, the Spotify side is the side that leads. The reason we're using Spotify Connect is because it's using Wi-Fi instead of Bluetooth. So Spotify Connect is ensuring that all the responsibility is basically all just on Spotify itself, which is a great thing because they designed a great app. So if I exited or just switched back to my actual app for controlling the soundbar, right, the BRAVIA Connect app, I can sit on that home screen if I want. And for some reason, it didn't stay connected in that way, which is funny to me. But I'll try it one more time just to make sure you can see what it looks like, even though I know that's how it works. So it's connected. It's funny how many times, by the way, it'll work on its own. And then the second you want to show someone else, it's like, let me make you look silly. Well, that's okay. Normally up here would say Spotify, right, instead of Bluetooth. Now, Spotify would denote that Spotify is in control, and you just go there for controls, except for volume or bass, right? So if I do Bluetooth and I connect that way, and I'll show you real quick just so you have an idea of the difference. Now you can see a nifty little control pad pop up, right? That's very helpful because that's the kind of thing that if I really want this to be simple and I really just want to make sure that only this app and nothing else, that's the way to do it. But again, Spotify Connect means we're using Wi-Fi. And I want you to think of it in a similar way to the stable connection versus sound quality. The stable connection is for distance. Sound quality is for quality, so the highway is closer and wider. And don't think highway in terms of bad traffic, because all of us, I'm sure, when we think highway, think, oh no. In this case, it's a connection between the device and the soundbar. And if you already know this, hey, just twiddle your thumbs for a second. But that highway is so important because the wider the highway, the more information can go down it, but the shorter that highway can be. And so if I focus on Wi-Fi, Wi-Fi is whole home, and that's a very wide highway. So the highway goes everywhere, and it's a very big bandwidth, great quality connection. That's why we use Spotify Connect, or that lossless streaming, like I mentioned earlier, that option we didn't go through. So again, you want to make sure you decide, do I want simplicity, ease of use? Cool, let's do Bluetooth. Very quick, very simple, tap and play, tap and pair, right? If we use Spotify, it's 2-3 more steps with my thumb. Oh no, if it's tired already, I'm so sorry. Mine are too, I'm sure. But it's very simple, and then we can use Wi-Fi, which we already set up. So you get to choose, and it's all in one spot, which I love. So, oh yeah, thank you, I appreciate that. If it wasn't for people doing that for me, with the step-by-step, I would not know it either. So trust me, I feel exactly what you're feeling, I think. So next, if we connect voice assistant, this is sort of a one-off, and it's not to take away from anyone who utilizes voice assistant a lot. I find that my clients are more typically used to doing it from the phone, put the phone away. And if we are using voice assistant, we might start that way, like, hey, play this or play that or change volume by that. And then inevitably we might gravitate back to our phone. But regardless, what I want you to know, and we want you to know from Sony, is that you can absolutely use Google Home to connect it, as well as Amazon Alexa. So those connection points are solid, and we have consistency across the board. So if we want to use voice commands like play heavy metal in the living room soundbar, wake up my daughter, please don't, I'm not going to do that, but it would happen. That's what would happen. So I can adjust the volume, I can pause, I can skip, and that's all without lifting a finger. If you're like me and you drive and you might work while driving, can't use my phone, so I'm using voice, right? So I use it mostly for me when I'm driving. But if you want to use it for your soundbar, do so. I love it. Just making sure we're cut. Question, I have my soundbar 8 mounted under my TV. Is that a good spot for it, or should I unmount it and replace it on the TV stand? So we actually talked about that on my last video, a little bit of the feng shui, right? And someone was bringing it up. They were talking about their east-facing room, if I'm not mistaken. That is a matter of preference in part. But the way I see it, and I think the way most people that sell these products in bundles or pitch these devices together, TV and bar, as close as I can get the volume to where the object or person is making the sound, the more accurate it sounds. And a great example of that is if you go to a movie theater. If you've ever been to a movie theater, and you know, I think my father-in-law goes there on Tuesdays because they're cheaper. So I know it's expensive, but if you ever go to a theater, if you've ever been to one, the movie theater screen is perforated, it has holes in it. Sound gets to go through it, and thus sound comes directly from the device making the sound. It's why it sounds so accurate. It's why it's, in part, sounds so good. That's the concept here, Kevin. It's the idea that the sound is as close to the screen as possible. It's why we do different things with TV tech, like glass speakers. But when it comes to soundbar mounting, if it was up to me, and I like the idea of either visually, I would want it closer to the TV. That being said, that mapping that I mentioned earlier, and if you weren't here, Kevin, basically using our mapping software, that sound field optimization, and how that soundbar figures out the room and makes sure that it is putting sound where it should be, that plays such a huge part in making sure it knows where the TV is, because you can tell it, and then it maps the room, putting voice exactly where the TV should, putting out voice. And fun fact, it's 2/3 up the screen more often than not. Next time you watch any show, any movie, look for where the faces of the actors and actresses are. It's very likely it's 2/3 of the way up the screen. The soundbar will figure that out if it has our sound field optimization. I love that. It's one of the coolest things. So great question. Stand preference, mounted preference plus, in my opinion, it would make it more easily accurate, or better, more accurate. Bad English on my part, my bad. But regardless, that mapping system, that's quality right there. So, are we ready for the next topic? By the way, the next topic is the secret, super secret bonus topic. If there was a drum roll, I'd hit it. All right, first, I'm sorry, if you feel tricked, I mean, come on, what did you really think it would be? I mean, it could be a movie announcement. That was what I tried last time, but I didn't get in trouble, but I could have. So, firstly, tips. An important way to find your bar, like I showed earlier, the family room theater bar 8, where you can actually label your soundbar, make it very simple, because some of us buy more than one device that sits on that network. Maybe you bought 2 soundbars. So if I go into system settings, literally settings and then system settings, and I look for that little circled by Matt's shaky finger, the unit name, you get to name it whatever you want. Hopefully you name it something, I wouldn't say professional, but keep it classy, right? But you can name that bar super easily. That way you know exactly where it is, etc. So, no, great point, Kevin. I completely get what you mean. I don't think you'll lose anything whatsoever. Again, preference, I think I get why for me. And I think it's a good general rule, mounted versus table. But I know quite a few designers, and I know our technology, they would say, hey, put it where you want, let the mapping speak for itself. Quality. But again, up to you. And I have my thoughts. I mount mine. So, all right, next tip, the Spotify app, TV Spotify app. If you have never used it, if you have a Google TV, and I'm pretty sure it doesn't just require Google TV, but hey, Sony is Google TV, so get on the program, right? Well, if you do have access to the Spotify app, and I believe you could do this on the actual phone app for lyrics, on the actual TV, you can play a sort of karaoke version thereof. So you have to look for the little microphone icon. And if you're utilizing the BRAVIA Connect app, the Sony BRAVIA Theater Bar, and then you're using the BRAVIA TV, there's a lot of BRAVIA we're throwing around, but that's quality, check, right? Look for the Spotify app, look for that microphone, and all of a sudden you'll be the best singer. You won't, by the way. I'm not, I'm terrible, but you'll be able to play Spotify and do karaoke included in the app. So I just thought that was a fun little tip. And just like the points, I guess the super secret bonus wasn't as super as it was secret. So next, a little bit of troubleshooting, just to make sure if we run into an issue. I've heard this maybe once or twice, but we want to make sure we get ahead of issues. If anyone has an issue that they want us to talk about, we want to make sure it's out there because we're proud of our issues, because we take great strides in affecting them. So when it comes to playing video on my phone and I'm connected via Bluetooth, why does my sound stop when my phone screen turns off? That's a big reason why we want to use Wi-Fi casting, something like AirPlay, for example. When I'm using that Bluetooth and I'm playing video on my phone, well, the phone is the video, right? So the second I turn the phone off or what have you, it's not just going to play the sound in the background. So just a matter of who's in control, right? Think of it like that Spotify Connect. Now Spotify has the control, skip, play, pause, right? And we just say, hey, here's a little visual if you want it to look pretty, which didn't pop up earlier, but it looked very similar to when I used the Bluetooth, just without the controls. That's why Wi-Fi is the way you want to go in terms of, I want it to just work, and then I can just turn my phone off and the TV will just keep playing that YouTube video that I cast, etc. Another one we've run into is, can I stream high res? And that's what I mentioned earlier with the 360 Reality Audio. And there are fantastic apps out there like Tidal or Amazon Music HD. And again, if you've never listened to the difference between a lossless track and an MP3, get on it. I'm telling you, it is night and day. And they're not hard to find. Kind of like when we think, well, where is 4K content? And we've all probably either had that question ourselves or heard it. We want to know, hey, where is it? You know, they're all 4K TVs. It's actually pretty readily available. And we just need to know where, right? So now we know where high res is. Lastly, what if my soundbar doesn't show up on the network? I hate to say it, but it's a fair problem. We all make silly mistakes, right? Check it's powered on. I can't tell you how many times I've run into that, and I'm not judging them because we've all done it. I've done it. I just will never tell you how many times. Many times. So not really maybe that many, but just make sure it's powered on, and you should be ahead of the curve, if you will, versus maybe some who didn't remember. All right, so just want to make sure I'm caught up here. All right, we are good to go. So where are we here? Wireless speakers, wireless streaming. Well, we want to make sure that we're doing this in the most quality or most effective way. So why we spoke about Bluetooth or why we spoke about things like AirPlay or Spotify Connect, we want to make sure you have the option range. So I want it simple and fast. I want it to be long range as far as it can go, or I want it to be quality. And I need to go through one or two more buttons, right? So to recap what we went over today, we want to make sure we connect it properly. We want to make sure we're aware of the value of the BRAVIA Connect app. When we do the BRAVIA Connect app, we want to make sure that we've optimized it properly. We want to make sure that if we add something, we optimize again. If we move it, we do it again. Just simple to access through that app. So not really a big hassle, right? Just open it back up. You connect in about 30 seconds, maybe 15, maybe 5. Click the button. And you just wait while these pretty tones show up. The birds play in the corner that made my wife say, "What? How to do that?" She really did, no joke. And then you're done. You want to get it right. So just make sure you take your time. Secondly, we went over streaming from your phone or tablet. We can all do better than those silly, tiny little bug-sized speakers in your phone, right? How many of your friends are like, check out this great trailer, and you're like, this is underwhelming. Let's put it on the TV. We have the technology, as the famous phrase goes. So if your thumbs work, this works. Use Spotify Connect for higher quality, Bluetooth for simplicity and speedy connection. But to be fair, did it really take me that long to do Spotify Connect? And I was taking my time because this thing has a delay. So you be the judge. Next, using voice assistant. Who has time to even use their thumbs? Not this guy. See, I don't even have time to use my thumbs. So if I'm using voice assistant, we can absolutely control our play, pause, our volume. We can specifically ask for things. Obviously, it's not in an AI, so we want to make sure we're the ones that are doing all the searching and the thinking, right? Hard life. And then lastly, our super secret bonus topic, aka getting you ahead of those pesky issues that technology sometimes springs upon the unsuspecting, but no longer the unprepared. Now you can actually find your bar, because you have your phone, and prove to everyone that karaoke is your secret talent, unlike me. Voice assistant, yeah, see, some of us are good at it. Others, we're like, what's the weather? Except when I'm driving, then I'm really good at it. Now, we want to make sure as well that you are registering your product. So if you haven't done that, there are various benefits, and one of the biggest ones is easier access to support. While it might vary outside the United States, it's sort of a no-brainer to help you cover your bases. Check those boxes around taking care of your future product needs. We will be more ready and able to help you. Not that we won't anyway, but we'll be more able to help you if you're already registered. Plus, you never know when there's a benefit to these things. So please make sure you product register, whether it's a new or you just bought it, or you're like, oh, dang, I forgot all about that. You're welcome. Now, would you like to know more? Movie reference. We have some options for the next videos. Might be me doing it, might not. But that being said, which would you like to see? A couple suggestions. Bravia's soundbar, not Bravia, because I see it twice in my brain. Soundbar quick settings menu on your TV, or Bravia Theater 5, Voice Zoom 3, versus Bravia Theater 6, or Theater Bar 6 rather, Voice Zoom 3. Voice Zoom 3 is interesting technology, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that's Sony Pictures technology that they were like, hey, would you like it? That's why I love this company and how we're able to complement each other, whether it's PlayStation, Sony Pictures, Sony Music, how we design the bars. Chef's kiss, as my wife would say. But that being said, would you like to see something else? If you got a great suggestion, let me know. Light blue light. Mike, you called it out. I'm so glad you called that one out because I did skip over that. The dark blue light was Bluetooth. The light blue light is Spotify Connect. Man, I'm so frustrated that I forgot. My apologies. So the white light, active input. Dark green light, I believe, is the inputs selected and active. There's a whole cheat sheet for these. There's not that many, but there's a cheat sheet you can look up on Google fairly easily, right? But the dark blue light is Bluetooth. When it's blinking, it's searching, right? It's in pairing mode. When it's solid blue, it's connected. And the light blue light is Spotify Connect. I actually didn't know that prior, and I do this for a living. I just hadn't run into it in my line of work. But that being said, light blue light, Spotify Connect is active and connected to your phone. You're welcome. And good call out, Mike. Thank you for keeping me on track. So if anyone wants to see a different topic, let us know in the chat and in the comments, right? So after that, though, I'm just making sure I'm caught up. Just make sure I didn't miss anybody, or if I missed anything, looks like I'm caught up. All right, so while I know this is rapidly becoming your favorite show on YouTube, I get it. I get it. All right, I don't know what I'm looking at, but that's the chat. Unfortunately, all good things must come to an end. A final friendly reminder to like, comment, or subscribe, but no more chat. It's over, and it's too late for you. Thank you for sharing this time with me. Now go test out those dance moves and show that beat what you're made of. Fist pump, not an official Sony recommendation. Take care.